Okay, let's unpack this a bit. When we talk about justice, our minds often leap straight to, well, grand legal systems, right? Courts, laws, maybe big societal acts of fairness. We picture the scales, the blindfolds, all that formal stuff. But what if one of the most profound crimes against justice isn't found in a courtroom at all? What if it's hiding in plain sight, in the quiet, almost invisible neglect of just saying thank you? What if it's actually the crime of ingratitude? Today, we're doing a deep dive into an idea that's honestly surprisingly central to ancient philosophy, particularly Stoicism, yet it often gets sidelined in our modern chats about virtue. We're looking at Seneca's really powerful assertion that ingratitude isn't just, bad manners, not at all. He saw it as one of the most corrosive social vices out there, a genuine poison that doesn't just harm your own character, but actively breaks down the very fabric of our relationships, our society. So we're going to set the stage by exploring why active practice gratitude wasn't just a nice extra for the Stoics. No, they saw it as absolutely essential. Not merely some pleasant, fleeting emotion, but actually a foundational element of justice itself. And crucial, really crucial, for leading a good, resilient, and genuinely happy life. Our mission in this deep dive, it's to pull out the key insights, maybe some surprising ones, from these ancient texts about what gratitude and ingratitude really are. To understand their impact, which is pretty far-reaching, on our character, our communities, and importantly, to find practical ways we can actually cultivate this vital virtue in our own lives today. Think of it as a shortcut to getting really informed on something that might just change how you see things day to day. Now, to really get why ingratitude was seen as such a massive issue by the Stoics, we kind of need to zoom out first. We need to appreciate their grand vision, almost cosmic, of the universe and where we fit in. They had this incredible, honestly breathtaking view of an interconnected world, a universe just humming with reason.
Exactly, that's spot on. For the Stoics, the universe wasn't just some chaotic mess, random events happening, the
Hmm.
cosmic lottery maybe. No, for them, it was fundamentally a rationally organized structure, something you could understand through reason, because it was reason in a way.
Mm.
At its very heart was what they call the logos. And this isn't just abstract logic, it's the active, organizing principle of everything, the cosmic blueprint. Sometimes they'd talk about it as a divine fire or breath permeating all things.
Mm.
And crucially, the reason we possess as humans, it wasn't separate. It was seen as a fragment, a little piece of that cosmic reason. So we literally share a fundamental property with nature, with the cosmos itself.
Wow, okay, a fragment of cosmic reason.
That's a thought.
Yeah, that's a powerful image.
It is. And it creates this undeniable connection. Cosmic nature or God, they often use those terms almost interchangeably, for this universal rational force and humanity are intimately linked. We're related as rational agents. We're like microcosms reflecting the macrocosm. And as you said, this isn't just some abstract theory. It's the absolute bedrock for how we ought to live. It informs their entire ethics. If we are rational beings living in a rational universe, then our highest purpose, our goal, must be to align ourselves with that universal reason.
That makes sense. It's almost a spiritual connection, but grounded in, well, logic, reason. So if we're built from the same rational stuff as the cosmos, what does that actually mean for how we're supposed to live our lives day to day?
Well, it leads straight to their core ethical principle, living in accordance with nature. Now, this doesn't mean just, acting on every impulse like an animal might. That's not it. For a human being, nature specifically refers to our rational and social nature. Those are key. So living according to nature means acting in harmony with our built-in capacity for reason and our innate drive for community. It's about aligning our actions both with our human essence and with the larger cosmic order. And from this really profound understanding springs this, well, truly revolutionary idea of the cosmopolis.
Cosmopolis, okay? The world city.
Exactly. The cosmopolis is the Stoic idea that fundamentally we are all members of one single worldwide interconnected community, citizens of the entire world. Now think about the time they lived in, dominated by fierce city-state loyalties empires. This was radical, almost subversive, you could say. It wasn't just about being nice to foreigners. It was this assertion that our shared reason, that spark of the logos in each of us, literally makes us kin. Citizens of one universal city governed by reason itself. It just shatters those old tribal or national boundaries, demanding a moral obligation not just to your neighbor or your country, but to all of humanity.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. If we're all citizens of this massive universal cosmopolis, right, all part of this single community, what does that actually mean for our everyday interactions? How does that huge, almost cosmic idea change how we look at the person sitting next to us, or maybe someone halfway across the world? It feels like it would have to fundamentally shift our sense of duty, wouldn't it?
Oh, it changes everything. And yes, it raises our sense of duty massively. Seneca and other Stoics, too, they taught that because we're all interconnected, human beings should actively desire to benefit all of humanity, this whole cosmopolis. They understood that society, at its most basic level, relies entirely on mutual support, on this constant flow of benefits, kindnesses, help given and received. Seneca used that from this analogy, didn't he? He wrote, "We are all parts of a great body. Our companionship is like a stone arch, which would collapse if the stones did not mutually support one another."
Right, the stone arch. I remember that one.
It's such a vivid image, and it's not just poetic license. It's highlighting a stark architectural truth. Mutual support isn't just a nice thing to have, it's absolutely vital. The whole structure depends on it. It's essential for human communities to even exist, let alone function well.
So that directly feeds into how they saw justice then.
Directly. You see it clearly in someone like Cicero. His famous work, De Officiis Duties, he really dug into these Stoic ideas of natural law and justice, especially for people who weren't, perfect Stoic sages yet. And he emphasized that justice isn't just some arbitrary set of rules imposed from outside. No, he argued it develops naturally from an innate tendency toward sociability. It's built into us.
Like a moral instinct almost.
Kind of, yeah. A moral instinct refined by our reason. It's this natural urge we have as rational social animals to connect, to cooperate, to contribute.
Okay, so justice is less about external laws, courts, punishment, and more about an internal drive, this natural need for connection and cooperation. Which brings us, I guess, to this idea of a kind of human contract, like an unspoken natural sense of fairness and shared obligation that exists between all people just because we're human and interdependent.
Precisely. That shared feeling, that fellow feeling, the Greeks called it philanthropia, is absolutely foundational for the Stoics. Seneca was explicit about this. He said, "The first thing which philosophy undertakes to give is fellow feeling with all men." In other words, sympathy and sociability. It's the starting point, the initial gift. So when this fundamental human contract gets ignored, when we fail to acknowledge kindness or support or a benefit we receive from someone else,
Right.
well, it doesn't just hurt feelings, it fundamentally damages the very fabric, the connections of this interconnected existence that the Stoics valued so highly.
Right. So let's tie this back directly to ingratitude. If we have this innate drive for sociability, and society absolutely needs that mutual support, that stone arch to hold together, how does something like ingratitude, which can feel so personal, almost private, how does that fit into this big picture? How does it actually impact this essential human contract and the stability of that societal arch?
Well, in the Stoic view, ingratitude is like taking a hammer to that arch. It's a direct assault on the mutual support that keeps society from collapsing. When one stone, so to speak, refuses to support another, the whole structure is weakened. When someone acts ungratefully, they're not just being rude or thoughtless. They are actively denying the bonds that tie us together. They're essentially refusing to play their part in that implicit human contract. It signals they don't value the connection, the kindness received, or even the shared humanity. So it's not just a social faux pas. It's a profound ethical failure. It undermines the very foundation of justice, of reciprocity, of human connection itself. It leaves this gap, this debt where trust and strength should be. The whole system gets thrown out of balance.
Okay, so we've got this picture now of the Stoic world as this beautifully interconnected system, almost organic, where mutual support is the structure, the architecture, and justice is this innate, natural drive holding it together. But what happens when, as you said, someone takes a hammer to it? When one of those stones is deliberately dislodged, when that fundamental human contract is actively violated, not just forgotten, that's where ingratitude comes crashing in. And for the Stoics, clearly, this wasn't just a minor slip-up. It was a profound act of, social self-sabotage, wasn't it? A corrosive vice with really quite terrifying implications.
Absolutely terrifying. For the Stoics, ingratitude is nothing less than a social poison. It fundamentally trashes that human contract we were just talking about, that natural sense of fairness, of give and take. That's just crucial for communal life. If we don't acknowledge kindness, if we don't reciprocate, that mutual support system Seneca described, the stone arch, it would inevitably collapse. It has to. Ingratitude directly attacks that necessary support. It creates a rift, a chasm where connection and interdependence ought to be, and what fills that void? Isolation, distrust. Just think about a friendship, right? Where one person constantly benefits from the other's time, effort, generosity, but never says thank you, never acknowledges it, certainly never reciprocates.
Yeah, that's not going to last long.
Exactly. Can only endure so long before it just shatters. Now, multiply that dynamic across an entire society, and what you get is social fragmentation, breakdown.
And to really grasp the depth of this destructive power, we need to quickly look at the Stoic theory of emotions, or what they specifically called passions. The Greek word is pathe. For them, these weren't just harmless feelings. They were defined very specifically as excessive impulses. The term is hormiplenozousa. Impulses that are disobedient to reason or fundamentally turned away from reason, as the founder put it. They saw these passions, things like intense anger, fear, grief, even excessive desire, as inherently problematic because they distort our judgment. They lead to irrational actions. And ultimately, they compromise our ability to live virtuously and happily. They weren't just internal states, they were active forces pulling us off course.
That phrase, excessive impulses, it really is fascinating. It makes emotions sound less like something passive that just happens to us and more like, well, something active and potentially really dangerous, like a powerful current maybe that can pull us off course if we're not careful, or even drown us.
That's a perfect analogy, and it captures precisely the distinction the Stoics wanted us to make. They drew a key line. Emotions are not just feelings. Now, feelings like, your heart racing or a warmth spreading through you or that knot in your stomach, those are our subjective awareness of physical changes. That happens. But the emotions themselves, for the Stoics, weren't just those sensations. They arise from our judgments about things, judgments about events, circumstances, and these judgments then lead to impulses to act.
Okay, so the judgment is key.
Absolutely key. So the feeling of fear might be the racing heart, but the emotion of fear, the passion, is the judgment. Something terrible is about to happen, followed by the overwhelming impulse to panic or run away. And these passions, they believed, they just run roughshod over our better judgment. They compromise our sense of agency, our self-control. They hijack our rational minds. Now, the Stoics weren't advocating for being emotionless robots. That's a common misunderstanding. They aimed to temper these excessive impulses with reason, to ensure our responses were proportionate, rational, aligned with virtue. They recognized that those initial impressions, maybe a flash of anger or fear, they called them pre-passions, are natural, but it's our assent to them, our irrational judgments about them, that turns them into these destructive passions.
Right, and among those passions, anger seemed to get special attention.
Oh, definitely. Anger was singled out, especially by Seneca, as the worst and most toxic of the extreme negative emotions. He was incredibly blunt about it. He described anger vividly as that movement which overleaps reason and drags reason along with it. It literally hijacks your rational mind, and it causes what he famously called temporary insanity.
Temporary insanity, wow.
Yeah, when a mind is consumed by anger, it loses its capacity for rational thought, for considered action. It becomes, well, unhinged, even if just for a short time. And that leads to impulsive, often violent, and almost always regrettable acts. It's like, handing the steering wheel of your life over to a raging beast. It might feel powerful for a second, but the destruction left in its wake is immense.
Okay, so if anger is this kind of temporary insanity, this beast unleashed, you can immediately see how a perceived act of ingratitude could just spiral into something incredibly destructive. It hits both ways, doesn't it? Ingratitude could easily spark that madness of anger in the person who feels slighted, the benefactor. But it could also stem from equally irrational impulses in the ungrateful person themselves.
Absolutely, it's a vicious cycle. Ingratitude very often causes anger or deep resentment in the benefactor. They feel wronged, disrespected, their kindness thrown back in their face. That initial sting, that feeling of being unacknowledged, if it isn't intercepted by reason, it can easily fester into this deep-seated bitterness. It erodes trust, tears apart families, friendships, communities. Seneca saw this all around him in Roman society, how a small slight and unacknowledged favor could turn powerful patrons against their clients, could turn close friends into bitter enemies. The gift, which was meant to build goodwill, ironically becomes a source of profound conflict.
And on the other side, for the person being ungrateful.
Well, for the ungrateful person, their lack of gratitude often stemmed from equally misguided impulses. Maybe it's envy, they resent what the benefactor has, or maybe it's just pure selfishness, a desire for even more than what was given. Or maybe just an inflated sense of entitlement, like they deserved it anyway. All of this reflects what the Stoics called a mistaken attitude about what's genuinely valuable in life. They believe that most human errors all spring from the same source. He's mistaken about what is genuinely valuable because he does not understand who and what he is. Yeah. So, ingratitude often pops up when someone values external things, possessions, status, maybe even a flawed idea of independence, where they don't want to feel indebted over the far more profound, truly valuable things. Human connection, relationships, acknowledged reciprocity. It's a symptom of a deeper philosophical blindness about what actually makes for a good life.
That links to what Seneca said about possessions too, doesn't it? About how owning more just exposes us more to fortune.
Exactly. Seneca argued that the more stuff we accumulate, the more we expose ourselves to the vagaries of fortuna, the whims of luck, the goddess of fortune. Owning lots of external things inevitably creates stress. We worry about keeping them, protecting them, losing them, people envying them. It's like playing poker with the universe, as you suggested earlier. The more chips you have on the table, the more you stand to lose, and the more anxious you get. And all this anxiety, Seneca said, just distracts us from our real work, developing our character, cultivating inner virtue, and aiming for that state of ataraxia, mental tranquility.
And envy plays into this distraction too.
Big time. Envy is closely related, Seneca noted. Envy doesn't just make us less satisfied, it makes us desire things that we otherwise wouldn't want at all. It's corrosive. When we're constantly looking over our shoulder what others have, instead of appreciating what we possess, we fall into this trap. This constant comparison fuels dissatisfaction. And that desire for what others have, it actively prevents us from appreciating what we do have. It creates this perfect breeding ground for ingratitude to take root and just flourish. The ungrateful person is often caught right in that cycle, always looking outward, always comparing, always wanting the next thing, and therefore never, ever truly thankful for what they've already received. It's like a self-inflicted wound to their own potential for happiness.
Okay, this is making so much sense. If ingratitude is this potent social poison corroding our bonds, fueled by mistaken judgments and toxic emotions like anger and envy, how do the Stoics propose we fight back? It sounds like it's definitely not just about trying not to be ungrateful, but about actively, consciously building the positive. What does that active cultivation of gratitude actually look like in Stoic practice?
You've absolutely nailed it. Stoicism isn't a passive philosophy. It's all about active engagement, rigorous mental training. It's about building inner fortitude, not just wishing things were different. And Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, gives us this incredibly direct, incredibly powerful piece of advice that perfectly captures this proactive approach. He says, practice feeling gratitude instead of desire.
Gratitude instead of desire. Okay.
It sounds simple, but it's a profound mental technique. It's designed to fundamentally shift your perspective. Think about it. To desire something, as Marcus points out, is to focus on what you don't have. To imagine the presence of something that's currently absent. It focuses on the gap, the lack. Gratitude, though, it does the opposite. It comes from actively imagining the absence of things that are currently present, consciously acknowledging the potential loss, the non-necessity of what you already cherish.
Right. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me, that question. What would it be like if you didn't have this? That is such a powerful reframing question, isn't it? It just completely flips the script from chasing what's missing to appreciating what's already here. It feels, yeah, simple in concept, but maybe incredibly profound in its impact. But how hard is it to actually do that? To genuinely feel that potential absence, to really internalize that everything is on loan idea instead of just nodding along intellectually? What are the hurdles?
Oh, it's incredibly difficult in practice. Make no mistake. Because our minds are just so naturally drawn to what's lacking, aren't they? To the next goal, the next acquisition, the thing we desire. The biggest hurdle is probably just our deeply ingrained habit of taking things for granted. The air we breathe, our health when we have it, the people who support us day in, day out, we just assume they'll always be there. Marcus understood this perfectly. He knew that if we don't deliberately, occasionally picture loss, if we don't actively remind ourselves what life might be like without the people, the opportunities, the simple comforts we currently enjoy, we inevitably start to take them for granted. It's just human nature. So this practice, this negative visualization, as it's sometimes called, actively counters ingratitude and transforms that passive expectation, of course this will be here tomorrow, into an active, almost visceral appreciation for it right now. It's a mental workout designed to reset our default perspective, to cultivate this deep sense of thankfulness that isn't dependent on getting something new, but on cherishing what already is.
It forces us, gently but firmly, to confront our own fragility and the impermanence of all external things.
So it's not just a feeling, it's an exercise, a practice.
Exactly. And the Stoics didn't just talk about a general feeling of thankfulness. They recommended specific practical exercises to make it a deeply ingrained habit, like training a muscle. One practice that feels very modern, actually, is gratitude journaling. Marcus himself advised, basically, keep a journal of people and things that you're grateful for.
Yeah.
He saw the value in that concrete act of writing it down, reflecting on it, making it real. And for a Stoic, this wouldn't just be a quick list like sunshine, coffee, my cat. It would involve reflecting deeply on why these things or people are valuable. What virtues do they represent or inspire? How do they contribute to my character, my well-being, my ability to live virtuously? It's a form of structured self-reflection.
And Marcus Aurelius himself practiced this, didn't he? That opening section of the Meditations.
Yes, that's perhaps the most striking and personal example we have. The very first book of his meditations isn't about grand philosophy or imperial strategy. It's titled Debts and Lessons. And in it, he systematically goes through the important people in his life and acknowledges, codifies, the specific lessons he learned and the positive influences he received from each one. It's quite moving, actually. He recognized his grandfather, for instance, for courtesy and serenity, showing how one could cultivate calm even under pressure. He thanked his father for embodying manliness without ostentation, highlighting the virtue of humility, especially when you have power. His mother he honored for her piety and generosity, showing the beauty of a giving spirit and reverence. He thanked his tutor for instilling a strong work ethic, the value of diligence and learning. It's incredibly detailed.
That debts and lessons section, it really is such a profound example of gratitude put into practice. It's not just some fleeting feeling or a polite nod. It's a deep philosophical accounting of positive influence, a conscious effort to really see and honor the threads connecting us to others, shaping who we become. How can we, our listeners, apply that kind of systematic reflection in our own lives today? It feels very actionable.
It absolutely is actionable. Anyone can do it. You could take some time, maybe first thing in the morning or last thing at night, and mentally, or even better, physically list the people who significantly influenced you. But then, here's the crucial Stoic step. Identify the specific lessons or virtues you gain from them. Don't just say, I'm grateful for my friend Sarah. Go deeper. I'm grateful for Sarah's unwavering optimism when I was going through that really tough time. She taught me the power of resilience. Or, I'm grateful for my boss's fairness, showing me how to lead with integrity. That level of specificity makes the gratitude concrete. It makes it actionable, and it makes it much more deeply felt. It helps you recognize this immense web of support and wisdom that has actually shaped you. And in doing that, it strengthens your own character and your sense of connection and purpose.
That makes a lot of sense. Specificity makes it real.
Exactly. And this whole practice connects directly to another core Stoic concept we touched on. This idea of attachment, or viewing life's good things as being on loan. The wise person, the Stoic ideal, is deeply grateful for whatever life has given them, but they simultaneously remind themselves that these things are merely on loan, everything changes, and nothing lasts forever. It's a paradox, but a powerful one. Epictetus, another key Stoic, used that great analogy of life's goods being like a sharing plate at a banquet. You don't greedily grab it and hold on to it or try to eat everything yourself. No, you receive it politely when it comes your way. You enjoy your portion while it's there, knowing it will eventually move on to someone else or the host will take it away.
The banquet analogy.
It's such a useful perspective because it helps us avoid becoming overly attached to external things. Because, as we discussed, that overattachment inevitably leads to suffering, to resentment, or even ingratitude when those things are eventually lost, as they always are, in one way or another. So this detachment actually grounds our gratitude, makes it purer, less conditional, because it's rooted in a realistic acceptance of impermanence.
So practicing gratitude isn't just about feeling good. It's about strengthening society and managing our own attachments.
Precisely. By actively acknowledging the good we receive from people, from nature, from the cosmos itself, we directly reinforce those social bonds that are so central to Stoic justice. Gratitude actively upholds that human contract. It recognizes contributions. It fosters that spirit of mutual support, which is absolutely essential for society's stone arch not to crumble. This conscious appreciation cultivates what Epictetus called pro-social actions, actions that benefit the community. It reinforces our role, as he saw it, as rational and social animals, constantly striving to contribute positively to the whole. So it really transforms a personal virtue into a societal pillar. Gratitude isn't just a nice feeling. It's a cornerstone of a just world, a world where people are bound by respect and reciprocity. It's an active investment in social harmony.
Okay, we've really explored how gratitude shores up justice in society, how it creates and reinforces those essential social bonds, preventing Seneca's stone arch from falling apart. That's the external piece. But what about the internal? What does cultivating gratitude do for us inside? How does this active practice contribute to that good and happy life that Seneca and the other Stoics were ultimately aiming for, particularly within our own minds, our inner citadel, as they called it?
Internally, gratitude is perhaps one of the most direct pathways to ataraxia, that state of inner tranquility, that deep, undisturbed calm that the Stoics prized so highly. It's a core target of the philosophy. Remember the fundamental Stoic principle. Our happiness depends only on the things we truly control. And what do we control? Our judgments, our values, our intentions, our responses. That's it. All the external stuff, possessions, reputation, health, other people's opinions they considered indifferent because they aren't entirely up to us. We can prefer them, sure, but our well-being shouldn't depend on them. Now, gratitude, when directed correctly, powerfully reinforces this distinction, this dichotomy of control. When we're grateful for what is within our control, our ability to respond virtuously, the lessons we learn from hardship, our chosen attitude, or when we practice gratitude through acceptance of what is not in our control, gifts received, life circumstances, the actions of others, we strengthen that internal locus of control. It helps us focus our energy and our appreciation on what truly belongs to us. And in doing that, it builds this incredibly robust internal fortress against all the inevitable disturbances from the outside world.
It really sounds like a way of deliberately aligning your inner world with external reality, doesn't it? Choosing gratitude, especially when facing things you can't change, seems like a much more direct route to that mental peace the Stoics sought. Instead of constantly fighting against what simply is, it's
Yeah.
almost, yeah, like a form of radical acceptance, but framed through appreciation instead of resignation.
That's a fantastic way to put it. Appreciation, not resignation. By choosing gratitude for what we have right now, for this present moment, for the inherent opportunities for virtue hidden in every single situation, good or bad, rather than constantly yearning for what is absent, we dramatically cut down on the emotional suffering that comes from demanding that the world conform to our wishes. It's a conscious, deliberate choice. And it frees us from that constant push and pull of external attachments, bringing us much closer to a state of inner calm, of equanimity. Instead of being perpetually dissatisfied, always wanting more or different, we become content with what is and actively appreciative of the good within it, however small. And crucially, this doesn't mean becoming passive or complacent. It means operating from a position of inner strength, freedom, and clarity.
And this gratitude extends beyond just people and circumstances to something bigger.
Oh, yes. The Stoic vision expands even further, embracing what we might call cosmic gratitude. This involves cultivating an awareness of being an integral part of the cosmos, a sense of belonging to the whole universe. It leads to a consequent dilation of ourself throughout the infinity of universal nature, as one scholar put it. It's this expansive, almost spiritual feeling of deep connection to the entirety of existence, recognizing that we are part of something vast, ancient, and intelligently ordered by that logos we talked about earlier. This cosmic consciousness naturally includes accepting universal nature's will, which, as we noted, they sometimes personified as the gods. So to follow the gods in Stoicism means to accept their will, which is identical with the rational unfolding of universal nature itself. It's an embrace of destiny, not with passive resignation, but with a kind of trusting alignment with the grand design.
Wow. So it's not just being grateful for my friend or my health or this project going well, but this huge, expansive gratitude for existence itself, the natural order.
Yeah.
Even for adversity, seeing it as somehow part of a larger rational plan. That's a truly all-encompassing, almost dizzying way to live.
It is
Yeah.
dizzying, in a way. But yes, exactly. Stoics famously try to seek the value in whatever happens. Now, this isn't some naive, just think positive approach. It's not pretending bad things aren't painful. It's grounded in a deep understanding, or at least faith in, the cause and effect rationality of the cosmos. And this perspective completely transforms our relationship with adversity. Challenges, difficulties, setbacks, they aren't just random bits of bad luck that we have to somehow endure. They are seen as necessary, even integral elements in the formation of worthy people and worthy achievements. There are opportunities. Epictetus, again, he was brilliant on this. He wrote that it is difficulties that reveal a person's character. He even compared adversity to a gymnastic trainer. He said the gods, like a trainer, have matched you against a powerful young opponent, meaning a tough situation, specifically so that you might become an Olympic champion in virtue.
The gymnastic trainer analogy that reframes hardship completely.
It does. Think about it. A weightlifter isn't exactly grateful for the pain of lifting incredibly heavy iron, right? But they're profoundly grateful for the opportunity that struggle provides, the opportunity to build strength, endurance, resilience. Similarly, a Stoic isn't grateful for the suffering itself, the grief, the loss, the fear. But they strive to be grateful for the growth, the resilience, the character development that these challenges make possible. Adversity isn't seen as a bug in the cosmic program. It's a feature designed specifically to hone our virtues, courage, patience, justice, wisdom. Even death, which is often our ultimate fear, our master fear, can be contemplated with a kind of acceptance within this cosmic gratitude, seeing it not as a terrifying end, but as part of universal metamorphosis, a natural transition within the grand cycle of existence. Now, this doesn't mean being grateful for dying exactly, but this perspective fosters a deeper, more profound appreciation for the life that has been given, seeing it as part of that larger, natural, rational cycle. And importantly, it strips away much of the intense, irrational fear that often surrounds death.
So it all circles back to virtue being the only true good.
Ultimately, yes. It ties directly back to that absolute bedrock Stoic belief. Virtue is the only thing that is good in any way, shape, or form, and flowing from that, virtue is sufficient for happiness. Nothing else is needed. All of those external things, wealth, health, reputation, even life itself, are merely indifferents. We can prefer some over others, naturally, but they are never truly good or bad in themselves. Only our character, our choices, our virtue holds that status. Gratitude, then, when it's practiced deeply and directed correctly towards the opportunities for virtuous action, towards our own capacity for reason, towards the lessons learned, towards character development, powerfully reinforces this core belief. It helps move us beyond chasing mere preferences for external things towards a profound appreciation for our own moral agency, our unique human capacity to choose virtue, to respond rationally, and to act justly, no matter what the circumstances throw at us. It's about being grateful for the power residing within our own mind and will.
This really does take gratitude to a whole different plane, doesn't it? It's so much more than just a pleasant feeling or a social lubricant. It's actually a powerful philosophical tool, a technique for shaping our character, fortifying that inner citadel, and ultimately grounding our happiness in something unshakable, regardless of what happens externally. It's about recognizing what truly belongs to us, our character, our judgments, our choices, and appreciating the profound inherent value of our own moral capacity.
Indeed. And there's that powerful story about Stilbo, a philosopher Seneca admired greatly. It perfectly illustrates this ultimate expression of gratitude for inner virtue. His city had been captured in war, utterly destroyed. He tragically lost his children, his wife, everything material. When the conquering general asked him what he'd lost in the sacking of the city, Stilbo famously replied, "I have all my valuables with me.
Wow.
All my valuables with me."
Exactly. Now, this wasn't some cold denial of grief or loss. It was a profound statement of Stoic conviction. He was expressing gratitude for his reason, his integrity, his wisdom, those invaluable traits of character that no external force, no invading army, no personal tragedy could ever touch or take away from him. That is the ultimate expression of valuing what is truly ours, and it shows that even in the bleakest circumstances, one can find a source of profound, unshakable gratitude. It's really a blueprint for an indomitable human spirit.
What a journey. So we've traveled all the way from Seneca's really strong warning about the crime of ingratitude, seeing it as this active dissolving agent for the essential bonds of humanity, something that even contributes to a kind of temporary madness, all the way to Marcus Aurelius's very practical journaling, his daily reflections, and the sharp analogies from Epictetus, like the banquet plate or the wrestler's training partner. We've clearly seen how Stoicism doesn't just weakly suggest being thankful, it prescribes an active, deliberate, ongoing practice of gratitude, one that strengthens our character, fortifies our inner peace, and actually underpins the very virtue of justice within our communities. Ingratitude corrodes that social fabric. It undermines the mutual support connecting us all. But active gratitude, deliberately imagining absence, consciously acknowledging contributions, appreciating inner virtue above all, it strengthens it, it fortifies it, it transforms not just our individual lives, but potentially the collective human experience too. It makes us better citizens of that cosmopolis and hopefully better versions of ourselves.
And maybe if we connect this all back to the bigger picture, this whole deep dive really raises an important practical question for you, our listener, to maybe sit with for a bit. How might actively choosing to sometimes imagine the absence of something or someone you currently cherish, or perhaps committing to doing a debts and lessons reflection of your own, thinking about who taught you what, how might doing those things actually reshape your daily interactions, your relationships, and maybe even your fundamental sense of what truly matters for a good and happy life? Just consider how that intentional shift, moving from a kind of passive expectation that things will just be there, to an active appreciation that they are here, right now, how that could transform not just your individual outlook, but maybe even the human contract in your own corner of the world. How it could strengthen that arch of connection and mutual support all around you. Because remember, as the Stoics taught us so powerfully, what we choose to focus on, what we deliberately choose to be grateful for, that truly shapes the reality we experience, and it definitely shapes the relationships we build. Your gratitude, or your lack of it, isn't just a private feeling stuck inside your head. It's an active force shaping your world.